He knows everything about the Buckeyes. He's been offered tens of dollars to buy a certain team to spill his secrets. He's told that certain team to go to hell.
Damn you all to hell!
He's Austin Ward.
Sponsored by High Bank Distillery, your destination for handcrafted cocktails, locally inspired dishes, and award-winning whiskey war. Learn more at highbankco.com.
All right, buddy. Was that the first time you've ever been out there for a game?
It was the first time I'd ever been to Washington or to Husky Stadium. I'd been out to Seattle for a soccer game, but being on their campus and seeing the sailgating, I got to tell you, Bo, it was really, really awesome. I tend to be a bit of a curmudgeon. I'm feeling like as I'm getting older and complaining about press boxes and travel and all those things, and I'm trying to be cognizant of that, but everything about what they did out there was, I think, top notch. It lived up to the billing, which I think is also why it made a pretty satisfying afternoon for Ohio State on Saturday, because that place is not easy to get in and out of with a victory. They've won 22 straight there. We all know that. But everything that they did was, I think, top notch all the way around, and it was very cool.
I was curious because when Oregon and Washington came in, I said, when you guys go out there, you're going to be stupefied that the Big Ten said, yeah, we'll take you, but you got to take half. Like, you think of the venues you go to regularly in the Big Ten, and like that one is a half price in that city. I think the ceiling for them is really, really high. I honestly thought I kept coming back to the word perfect. I think it was almost the perfect first road test for Ohio State in every way. What were some of your big thoughts?
Yeah, it really was, because it was going to reveal so much about Ohio State, and I think every box was checked. If we talked about for the last 2 weeks, during that off week and then last Monday, just looking ahead, okay, how is Julian Sayin going to handle that noise? I think right in that first drive, I looked over and they had the decibel meter up there on the screen, and it was around 120. Julian Sayin wasn't fazed by any of that. And I don't know that comes as a major surprise, but you don't know until you know. He didn't back down from Texas at an elite defense in week one, his first home start, first college football start. This was his first road start, first Big Ten start, and I think more than the noise and the communication and command of the huddle and line of scrimmage and all that stuff was going to be more of a test than Washington's defensive talent. So he answered that challenge. I think he is only getting better, and you're going to continue to see more and more given to him as you move forward here in this stretch. So he passed that. Then you had, how much of this is real for Ohio State's defense with this start they've been off to? Because Arch Manning and Texas have struggled. Maybe that wasn't as meaningful. What is Damon Williams going to do? What is Jonah Coleman going to do? What is Denzel Boston going to do? The answer is none of them were able to find the end zone against Ohio State. So now you're looking at 2 scores given up in 4 games, 22 points total. It's pretty remarkable what Matt Patricia is cooking up with that group, and all 11. But I think, to go take it one step further, the last 8 months were about this Ohio State defensive line, and if they could meet the standard from Jack, JT, Ty, and Ty a year ago, and Caden Curry and Caden McDonald especially are just absolute monsters right now. And Wednesday night, and I don't want to leave him out of this conversation. Statistically, Kenyatta Jackson, didn't quite meet that same level of what those 2 guys were doing next to him. But on Wednesday, after practice, he had a massive brace on his left leg. It looked like he could barely walk. I talked to him, as he was leaving the stadium on Saturday. Like, not only did he look fully healthy, he didn't have a brace on during the game, he had probably the best game of his Ohio State career on Saturday at Washington, and he was like the third wheel. So kudos to all of those guys. They handled the noise. They handled Washington's offensive talent. They handled the body clocks. And anytime you can beat Washington by any amount in that stadium, you're going to feel really good about it. To do it by 18, I think it deserves a huge tip of the cap to Ryan Day and his staff.
Buddy, this is the best I've ever seen the defensive line work in concert with the back half of the back end of the defense. I thought that their approach for Williams was stunning. The discipline it took to get push but stay in those gaps. Dude, he had negative 28 yards There was nothing there. There was nothing there. Those guys stayed home. Our two leading tacklers were the two Cadens, for God's sakes. Like, I just thought it was the most comprehensive defensive plan, and I think that Matt Patricia and Larry Johnson, all the rest of the guys, like, they're just all appear to be, buddy, maybe in a way we haven't seen in a while, all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, they're working in complete concert. And you mentioned the trip out to Oregon last year, Bo. That was the famous re-engineering conversation, and is the pass rush and the coverage working hand in hand the way that Jim Knowles talked about. And by the end of the year, we know how great and dominant Ohio State was. There's a trophy in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center to prove it, and they were the number one defense. But they had opportunities. They gave up some that just made you kind of scratch your head. Certainly against Oregon, but they did come back together. But it always felt like it was a little bit disjointed. That there wasn't perfect harmony between that. And I think you and I were talking right after the Texas game, where it was like college football really messed around, and Penn State and James Franklin feel like they have this coup, and Matt Patricia fell into the lap of Ryan Day and Ohio State, and it was the greatest thing that may have ever happened to this team in terms of going to about a national title defense, because the continuity and the chemistry that appears to exist between Larry Johnson, Matt Patricia, James Laurinaitis, Matt Carreri, and Tim Walton, and I know that there's a host of other people that are involved. I don't remember there being this like sense of kumbaya and like complete agreement about how to use the personnel on hand in a very long time at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a crazy thing to say because they just won a national championship, but there is a special vibe that's going on that side of the football right now, and it's on pace to lead to something pretty historic.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It's just to me, it's the best defense in the country, and I don't think anyone's in the vicinity of it offensively. So this is what I think. I think Ryan is playing the long game here. I keep going back to what he says during the week, and even this week he kind of sounded a little bit like Texas, like just go win the game. They have the third fewest plays in college football right now in the Division I level in terms of plays called. But I think he's perfectly fine with that because he knows what this defense is. And he also wants these games. He's trying to play 16 games. He's trying to keep people healthy. He's just trying to win games and move forward. But I think what you saw in the second half, where 25's in there, you start to trust Julian a little bit more. And I don't think that they lack trust at all. I just don't think it's necessary. In terms of what they are going to be offensively in November, I think you got a little taste of that in the second half. What do you make of Ryan's plan week to week offensively?
Yeah, I think Saturday we're going to look back at it as a little bit of an aberration. I agree with you overall, and I asked someone on that coaching staff as they headed to the bus on Saturday, like, I just have this idea that you guys have fully embraced an NFL mentality with the way day to day and week to week. And with a long-term view. And they said yes, but also Saturday got very wonky in the first half because the length of the possessions that were going on both sides of the football, and then the one that they didn't get because of the Brandon Ennis punt return fumble. Like Washington threw a very different look at them than they had seen on film and what they were expecting, and they only had 3 possessions to account for that and make adjustments. So that was a little bit unusual for them. In a normal game, or even if you played more up tempo, you could manufacture get through that quicker than Ohio State was able to on Saturday. But we've seen this a number of times as well with that NFL mentality. You get into the locker room, you make those adjustments, and if Ohio State just simply plays games that are close, whether they're up or down a score, by the time they adjust on offense and defense in the second half, most teams are not going to be able to account for their physicality and the knowledge on that coaching staff. So it's not, for me, I don't view it as making an excuse or Ohio State just believing it only has to play a half of football to beat opponents. I think that they're content to play or get into a 12-round boxing match because they know that their power and their counters are eventually going to knock somebody out. And would it be great to see a full 4 quarters and up-tempo and airing it out on every single drive? Yeah, I don't think I'd mind that, or anybody would mind watching them do that. But that I don't think is the best way to get through 16 games or more and try and win that trophy at the end. And so some of this stuff we may just have to be a little bit patient because Ryan Day has certainly gotten comfortable with that patient approach and knowing what that can do for his team.
Did you have a good meal out there?
Boy, a lot of liquid meals for sure. The
They can do a beer.
There, Bo. I mean, yeah, fantastic. That they do it right, and we were staying pretty much like a mile from the Space Needle, so you could throw a rock in every direction and hit a nice craft brewery, and we did that. Here today on Friday night was a great spot. Had a few beverages there and some hot shows that I'll be dreaming about forever.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a great city. I'm glad it's in the rotation. I don't think it makes any sense at all for the non-revenue sports, but for football, I'm glad they're in the mix. Great talking to you as always, buddy.
All right, we'll talk to you next Monday, Bo.
All right, there he goes, Austin Ward, The Beat with Austin Berman, the Roosters live show on YouTube on the Bryan Heating and Cooling Systems Fan Guest Hotline.